and welcome to O2 Tara Talks, conversations about one thing you can do right now to stay healthy in body and mind. And as always, we start with a little disclaimer. Today's conversation is for informational purposes only. Please consult with your practitioner for guidance specific to your situation. Okay, and now that we've gotten that out of the way, I am very happy to introduce to you Jennifer Bronsnick, and she is the Womanhood Doula. How are you, Jen?
Hi, thank you for having me, Tara. I've been looking forward to this for a long time now.
Yeah, I'm so glad we're finally connecting here and getting on this. So, Jen, can you tell us in one sentence, how do you help people?
I help people by supporting them to access their own healing. So helping them to figure out what's at the root of why they're struggling with anxiety specifically, and then what are the simple actions that they can take to begin to experience resilience and wellness in mind, body, and spirit. And it's because of my own healing journey that I think really enables me to do that for others. I've been
Beautiful. Yeah, and I think, and for my work, same thing. I've been there, and I think that's what really helps us help people so well, because once you know what it is, you can really help people with it too. So then I love the whole thing that you do, and I think especially now, while we're in this pandemic living and stress is through the roof, anxiety is terrible, and I'm a sleep strategist. People are struggling with sleep, all these things. So then let me ask you, Jen, what is one thing that we can do right now?
Yeah, I want to invite you, whatever's happening, however you're feeling, whatever you're struggling with, just accept yourself. Bring compassion to your experience, your struggle, like almost like as if you were, taking care of a young child that just got a boo-boo. It's that, that like big warm hug of acceptance for yourself.
So that's really interesting, and I like the way you compare it to a child, because a lot of times it makes us easier to really appreciate it when we step outside of our own heads for a second. So can you tell us then, Jen, why is it so important to do that, to really, accept things ourselves and treat ourselves with compassion?
Yeah, we tend to have these brains that are hardwired for negativity and for judgment and for guilt and for looking at all those things that aren't working. And that was a really great survival tool. However, now that's not working for us anymore. That harsh, critical voice that either we've received from loving adults as we were growing up as children, or some people's brains are just more hardwired to the negativity, and there's nothing wrong with you. So it's just that noticing, like, oh, there's that judgy part. Let me bring some self-acceptance to it. And what that does and why that's important is because it's only from that place of compassion and self-acceptance that we can say, oh, we're worthy of taking care of ourselves. We're worthy of taking time to read a book when we want to, of not having to force and push and do all the things while we let our own health and well-being fall to the wayside, because there's this kind of like this background tape, like you're not enough, you have to prove yourself, you're not enough. And so we want to not resist the tape. We acknowledge the tape that's there. We acknowledge that it's not working anymore. And ultimately what we really need is self-compassion to say, no, we're lovable. We are enough. We are valuable. We are deserving of receiving care, support, guidance, and investing in ourselves. Because that's really what it comes down to, is that we're afraid to put in the time or put in the money. And that's, ultimately where the healing is going to happen, when we have a little bit of that skin in the game.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's so funny because as you're talking, I'm thinking of what I say to my kids oftentimes. It's just, if you have the choice to either burn up your energy in that place of saying, I don't want to, I can't, I shouldn't, it's not right, or you can just sort of say, okay, and then move on, right? And I
Yeah.
think when I'm listening to you, it sort of reminds me of that, and especially for ourselves, and especially I think as moms, we sort of we get hit from so many different places, and we can really go by the wayside, and a lot of
Yeah.
not so great things can happen when it happens. Well, good. So
Sure.
let's actually delve in a little specifically then. When it's kind of like what we were just talking about, what would be some roadblocks really that would make it so hard for us to basically accept ourselves and have that compassion for ourselves? Just maybe the top ones that you hear
Sure.
about.
Yeah. So in my practice, I use something called human design. And so I run it's a birth chart basically. And so within the chart, I can see before I've even met the person where those roadblocks are going to be. And it's going to be in the places where they are open to the energies of others. And so therefore they create these patterns to protect themselves by, let's say, overworking or overcaring, or sometimes believing that they don't know enough, they're not smart enough. So we have these sort of like built-in conundrums, let's call them, that our job on this planet is to get to the root of them so that we can acknowledge, oh, that's there, because that's how growth happens. Growth happens in the pushback, in the resistance, in the struggle. And it forces us to say, oh my gosh, I have this problem. Let me transcend that. Let me find someone that has been there before and can light the way for me a little bit. Let me, go to Google and put in like healers for anxiety or feeling like I'm not enough. And so, it's really that the pain, which is ultimately our biggest motivator. So it's kind of changing your relationship to anxiety, physical pain, emotional pain. It's there as a gift to wake you up and to guide you along this path of growth, because that's why your soul came here, is to grow and to evolve. And that's why our kids are sometimes our best teachers, because they push back, they give us that resistance, they bring up all of our issues. And so if we can see that as a gift rather than, they're trying to piss us off, and so then we get more stressed and be like, oh, I'm going to drop into the non-resistance, like I'm going to allow what's happening, and then I'm going to become curious with it.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, two things. One is about the pain. Like, yeah, I know my osteopath always says, think of pain as information. Right? And it's
Totally.
certainly what you're talking about, it's the same thing. That pain is information of, hey, we need to do something here. So I love that. And then the other thing is, like you're saying with your kids, like absolutely we can get stuck in those things. It can become a defensiveness or whatever old patterns that we don't maybe
Totally.
even know why we're doing. And so if we can just say, okay, this is what it is, let me accept this, and free up our energy essentially to explore and begin the process, then we're in really a much better place of moving forward. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So how and that's the other thing you mentioned too, how and I know this for myself, if I'm not feeling confident about something, or if I feel like something's hanging over my head, at least in the past I used to feel like it was me, and then so when you mentioned talking to people or going to Google it, when you say, oh my gosh, other people deal with, like, it's so
Yes.
freeing,
Yeah.
where it's
Totally.
like, oh, okay, this is totally just, the human condition. This isn't
Yes.
just me and something about me. So I really think,
Totally.
that's a really important thing.
Absolutely.
So then in terms of trying to overcome these roadblocks, do you have, a concrete tip or strategy that would really help somebody who's trying to make this leap? They're recognizing this pain and they're trying to kind of step forward.
Yeah, so there's a technique in heart math called the quick coherence strategy. And I love this because I get that meditation is awesome and wonderful. And if you meditate every day, like, God bless you. Like, but I have a hard time with the, like, I'm going to sit for 15 minutes. But what I do instead is this quick coherence strategy where I just, step one, I'd find my heart center. So that could be in the middle of your chest. It could be on the side of where your actual heart is. But for me, it's here. And so I touch my heart and I breathe in and out of my heart for a couple breaths. And then after a few breaths, I think about a happy memory. And my most recent one, I have many of them, but one that stands out to me that really gives me this feeling of joy and appreciation is when we got our new puppy. And there's just some, like, that moment of the kids seeing her and her little crate and her little tail, and like I can go right back into that moment and I can feel like my cells open up. And so I breathe in that memory for about 30 seconds and then I go on with my day.
Beautiful.
And so
I love it.
it's this, it's a pause to be in a state of appreciation. You're not, again, you're mindful. So you're allowing, if a negative thought pops in, you just come right back to the, you're breathing through your heart, that vision of that memory over and over for as long as you want. It could be 10 seconds, 30 seconds. It could just be 1 second where you just pop back in and then you go on with your day. You drive in the car or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
I love heart math.
Yeah, well, and that strategy, quick coherence strategy, really resonates with me too as a breathing specialist, because when you are anything other than, where you want to be, the best thing to do is go to your breathing, because that is our most fundamental need. And so by making it concrete, I have a similar thing that I do about the hand placement and bringing us in, and the same type of thing to really get us back to that calm place. When we are anxious, when we're, all out of sorts, we tend to alter our breathing habits unwittingly. So if we can certainly do a strategy like you mentioned and bring it back in, we'll get out of that fight or flight nervous system and then back into the rest and digest, and that's when we feel good. So wonderful. I think that's fantastic. Jen, if our listeners wanted to find out more about you or contact you, where would they go?
Sure. To my website, which is www.jenniferbronsnick, BRONSNICK.com. And it's in progress right now, but it should be up any day. But that's the place to go.
Good. I think a lot of us have web pages in progress right now. We're always thinking. So
it goes somewhere. It's just not to where it's going to go for the the final finale.
Right. You'll get something wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I think that's such a wonderful strategy, such an important topic for people, especially now while we're dealing with all of these conditions. And thank you so much for talking to us and sharing with us today.
Thanks,
Have a good
Tara.
day. Thank you.